last year, in 2024, a new Code Geass sequel series came out. And if this is the first of you hearing about it, and finding that out, that's probably because it was exclusively on the renowned anime streaming service, Disney+. Yeah. But is that the only reason it flew under the radar? First, before getting into anything else, the basics. Roze of the Recapture is a 12-episode sequel specifically to the Code Geass movie trilogy and Lelouch of the Resurrection, where Japan has been partially taken over again by Neo Britannia, Hokkaido specifically, starring new protagonist Sakuya Sumeragi, who survived Neo Britannia's takeover in spite of being the daughter of the now former governor Jugo Sumeragi, and Sherry v Britannia. In order to not be discovered, she has assumed the identity of Roze, and now fights alongside Rose's brother, Ash, while using her Geass, the eerily similar ability to give people orders, to fight against Neo Britannia. The second episode then builds on that by revealing her true relationship with Ash.
兄さんにとって大切な人って誰?
それは弟.
Revealing that Ash was actually the first person she used her Geass on, as he caught her as she was fleeing her home, having seemingly already killed her father. Now, as soon as she's done using his piloting skills to fight Neo Britannia, she plans to avenge her father by killing him. Immediately, you can see the first major thing working against it. Lelouch isn't the main character, instead replaced by a new female character with similar parentage and the same power. Lelouch is actually briefly in the series. He is who gives Sakuya her Geass, and the show does have some good fan service, but I've seen that for a lot of people, Lelouch not being the main character is a deal breaker for any Code Geass series. Understandable, he's great, and there's not much I could say to change your mind if that is a deal breaker for you. Personally, I fall on the opposite side, where I would be heavily sceptical if he was the main character of any new series, because I just loved the original series ending. But I do think they've set up a really interesting dynamic between Roze and Ash instead. They reveal that Roze isn't just a Mulan type, but also royalty, and then revealing on top of that Ash was the first person she used her Geass on, as he caught her as she fled home after he killed her father, and that she will avenge her dad and kill him after they're done, is excellent. It's a dynamic potentially capable of rivaling Lelouch and Suzaku's in the original series, and shippers and Fujos should love it, I imagine. Shit, I might go and write some fucking fanfiction. Seriously though, if you're a shipper or the like, I do think you would probably at least like it. Yaoi fans, I don't know about, because even though she's pretending to be a boy, she is ultimately a girl, so it won't be the same as Suzaku and Lelouch in the original series. I imagine, probably. Just like Suzaku, Ash also serves the ace pilot role of the series, and his battle music is one of the absolute best things about the show. The music matches his fast fighting style, and they both build awesome anticipation at the start of a fight, and then explode into a burst of speed. While editing, I realised that the music is actually used quite sparingly, but all of it is impactful enough that alongside the great opening, it creates a strong vibe, and really leaves an impression once the show's done. As you saw though, the nightmare frames are now CG, and it's a mixed bag. Which, hey, is better than a lot of CG. The CG is what allows for Ash's fighting style to be so fast, as well as allowing more involved enemy nightmares that require different tactics and more dynamic camera angles. On the other hand, it allows for more involved enemy nightmares, which just look completely out of place. This series has helped confirm for me that CG mecha aren't actually innately all that bad, and it's instead because it removes the limitation of having to design something that can actually be drawn in motion. The designers often instead design as if they're making kits, with lots of surface detail and parts and appendages that just don't look naturalistic in an otherwise 2D anime, or really even at all. Because the old Nightmare frames from the original series look perfectly fine here. Fantastic, even, really, as it's really quite difficult to tell whether they even are CG. Thankfully, it isn't just the old frames too. The simpler new ones, as well as, most importantly, the new mainframe, the Apollo, look good by avoiding being over-designed and only utilising the CG for improved metallic colours and shines. So overall, I'd say the CG is a net positive, as honestly, Code Geass, in my opinion, has never been that good at making new, varied, or non-Britannian designs. A large amount have always looked weird, or like toys, and I say that as a huge fan, with a lot of figures and model kits and everything. But I also say it's a net positive because the CG does allow the choreography to really give Ash the feeling of a unique combat style, which is actually even quite relevant to the plot. It's just a shame Bandai makes so few Code Geass kits, because a lot of these designs could actually be really cool and look better in plastic form. Similar to the Bayformers, pretty much. Overly detailed designs that are just hard to follow on screen, but in plastic form, where they can't move and are forced to stand still and allow you to appreciate the detail, alongside the detailed thing that is real life, look really good. But really, the series is just far too much like The Force Awakens. It brings back the defeated enemy empire, it doesn't explain how, it has a new big piece of technology that also remains unexplained, and the implications of which go underexplored in the Stumpe, or however you pronounce it. The massive force field barrier that they have erected around all of Hokkaido, and also a new massive spoiler weapon in the end. However, it's not as bad as it sounds. They do avoid most of the pitfalls that The Force Awakens and the sequel trilogy fell into. The old main characters are mostly kept out of the story. They do appear, as they should, and give us some fan service too, but they're not part of the main events of the show, stealing screen time and attention and affection away from the new cast. This allows the new cast to really stand on their own, not share the screen time with characters that have already had their own entire stories that we already love, that have already completed their character arcs, and instead properly explore the new cast. And what we do see of the original characters also shows that, unlike the sequel films, the characters haven't all backslid into their day one selves, and undone all of their character arcs and progression from their original stories. We see just enough to see that they're all still in their new roles in the world that they changed. And again, unlike the sequels, it does still make an effort to show the politics of the world, even if it's hard to understand and entirely undercooked due to the series' time constraints. Most of all, sure, the Empire's back, but the prior accomplishments and the entire point of the beloved original stories aren't wiped out. The Britannian Empire at large is still gone, replaced by a United Nations, and the Black Knights are still the ones protecting it. Even though the show doesn't do a very good job of making it clear, only Hokkaido has backslid. Everywhere else, the original heroes still won, and everything they did still mattered. This also leaves it open for a story with the old cast to still happen, for us to find out and be given a better reason for why they're not involved in this conflict. It's essentially like if J.J. Abrams' mystery boxes had just never been opened. If we just never found out why Luke Skywalker didn't come to stop the First Order. It's not good to not explain that. It's not good to not explain why Lelouch himself is okay with even just part of Japan being taken over again, but it's better than a bad explanation, and better than wasting the show's extremely limited time and again, stealing screen time away from the new cast and making and reminding that people still only care about the original cast instead of the new. After seeing the entire sequel trilogy, is it not kind of hard to argue that it would have been better off if Luke Skywalker and Han Solo and all of the original cast just hadn't really been in it? I'd rather have, like the series provides, no explanation than a bad one. And that extremely limited time is absolutely the show's biggest problem. They've amazingly managed to keep almost all of the meat, but it's missing all of the fat that would usually go into a story like this. The show just doesn't have enough time to do what it should have and be more political, to offer more explanation as to how Neo Britannia exists, to explain the Stumpy Wall, to give characters time to interact, for tech. For example, the political implications of the Stumpy barrier. Either it's active all the time and they've cut themselves off from imports and outside support and resources, or they allow some shipments through, opening up a weakness that could, and maybe would, have made a great action scene. It seems like that could have been the original plan for how they attacked the prison in episode 2. I'm not sure if it was just me, but I was personally confused the first time watching it where the prison was, whether it was on the inside of the barrier in Hokkaido or on the outside. It could have avoided that entirely, and instead had the attack been based on a limited time window that the barrier would be down, receiving shipments and foreign resources. It's also missing the details of the tech. How many times have you seen, over the years, the scene and sequence of Tony Stark suiting up in the Iron Man armour for the first time? Personally, I've seen it a million times, as GIFs, backgrounds of YouTube videos, constantly, just like you currently are now. And on the face of it, if you really think about it, if you had to cut the length of that movie in half, that scene isn't doing and accomplishing that much. It helps us, the viewer, understand the armour and the technology more, and that's about it. It isn't critical to the plot that we see all the movements and motors and panels that go into the armour. It doesn't inform the characters particularly. It's not important to Tony Stark's arc that we see all of that or anything. So if you had to go and make that movie half as long all of a sudden, you would probably cut it out. But I don't think you can argue that the movie would be better off. It wouldn't. It would be worse. But unfortunately, that's the situation the show is in. Unlike the first time the Lancelot gets introduced, we just don't have the time to show the innards of the Apollo, see its incomprehensible and strange power supply, and all of its internal mechanics and functions, like we did for the Lancelot. In Roze of the Recapture, we don't even really get to know what the Apollo's special ability really even is. We don't need to be clear. They've done an excellent job with the visual design so that you can imagine and get a feel for what's happening. All the gas venting out of the nightmare frame makes it feel like a strong but dangerous and temporary power-up. As if all of the excess fluid, the coolant and hydraulics are being purged to make it lighter weight, faster, and allowing it to go beyond its specs for only a limited time. Something like that. I doubt it's anything of the sort. It's probably something much more fantastical and strange, considering how strange what we see of the internals of the Lancelot are, and considering the actual details of Code Geass's world if you dig into it, the differences. Like, Google what year Code Geass takes place. It is not when you would think. But the strong design does allow for you to find your own feeling of how it works, and stops it from ever feeling just bullshit. With a full 24 episodes, it still might not have been perfect. The main villain is still terrible, with literally no motivation. It's impossible to know whether that would have been fleshed out with a longer runtime or not, which is disappointing because he is cool. They may have made a villain with no clear reason for his actions, but at least he is quite cool. He sounds great. And they don't just play around the edges and pretend like there's a lot more going on than there is. They have a villain who's a blank slate, and they do run with it. The scene at the end where he's asked, "Why the fuck are you doing this?" and just keeps saying and just keeps shooting down every suggestion she has is great. I'm not sure it's supposed to be funny, but it is.
生理的な剣を
And it might be. It might be intended to be just ridiculous. It's great. The show, even with a longer runtime, still raises the stakes way, way, way too high in the end. Similar to Season 2 of the original series, with its whole plan for Geass. And I still think, without spoiling it, that they made the wrong choice with the ending. But with a full 24, 25, 26 episodes, it could have been really good. And we'll never know what it could have been like, what we could have had. And in light of that, I actually find the finished series that we got quite impressive. Like I said, it's not missing only a couple of episodes like The Witch from Mercury. It is half as long as it should have been, as it needed to be. And yet they still managed to make it, in my opinion, good. Enough that I will rewatch it. Enough that I was motivated enough to make this video. So of course, I just can't help but wonder what could have been. I've no idea why Bandai went this way and made it so short. Hopefully, as unlikely as it is, we get some information in the future, eventually, about what went on with this production. Whether, as it seems, Bandai cut the episode count in half after the series was already planned, or whether whoever concepted and planned the series just completely fucked up and crammed way too much in. We'll probably never know. But what we did get, I would actually recommend. The music and action is great, it has lots of memorable, cool moments, and the concept and relationship between the two main characters is very interesting and very well done. Certainly, if you like yaoi, or shipping, or enemies to lovers, or anything of the sort, then I would definitely recommend it. 100% if you like writing those things, because the idea here is great. Thank you very much for watching. This is the first video I've done of this type. I hope you liked it. If you did, please leave it a like so that I can tell. If you have any constructive criticism or any feedback on the video, please comment below and let me know. I'd love to hear it. How well this video does will help determine how often I make these kinds of videos in future and the ratio of them to my other videos. So if you want more of this kind of video, subscribe, and then I'll know, hey, this is what you want. Let me know what you thought of the series, especially if you go and watch it after watching this video. I'd love for you to come back and let me know what you thought. Thank you so much for watching. Until hopefully next time, bye. By the way, I think The Last Jedi is the best of the sequel trilogy. In my opinion, just about everything people complain about in The Last Jedi is the fault of The Force Awakens. You may now burn me at the stake. What are you doing with that pitchfork? No, please! No, please!